Hi folks, and welcome to another Sonic Academy video. This one's a very special edition. We're in Charlie May's studio and he's going to do us the honour of taking us through a world exclusive remix walkthrough of Lana Del Rey, Ride. And you've been doing this remix with James Lavelle.
That's right, yeah.
Tell us a bit about how you sort of got involved in the remix, or how it sort of came about.
Yeah, quite an interesting story. A little bit of record company shenanigans going on. We got a call on, I think it was possibly a Wednesday or something. It might have been a Friday, I can't remember. It was a bit of a blur, saying they needed a remix done of this track, and we had 2 days to do it, which of course is a lie. You know, so it's a record company trick to get you to actually be motivated or terrified, probably both. But so we had 2 days to do it, and we dropped everything else and got together here and just motored through it, really. So it's in a very raw state. This isn't the actual finished mixed arrangement. That was done by my friend Chris Allen down in Brighton, and he did it in Logic. So I bounced stems from this Ableton set, but what you hear is there's nothing added. There's no difference really.
It's just really a mixed down thing.
Just,
and is
yeah.
that, are you do you not like mixing down in Ableton? Do you prefer going to something else, or is it?
I tend to mix in Logic if I've got time, but there was no time, and if I'm working that hard on something and not really getting enough distance from it,
yeah,
then I find I lose perspective on it after a while, and I just don't want to have to think about mixing it. I just want to make the track and write the parts.
Yeah, when you've been going so hard at something, it's
yeah,
hard to...
Yeah, you don't want that in the back of your mind, making you think, oh, how am I going to sort of blend this at the final stage? So.
And what parts did you get from the record company?
That's a good question. We had obviously the vocal. It's a very sort of traditionally arranged track with bass, guitar, drums. There's no electronics on it.
Strings.
Some strings, and I think I used a few of those. But mainly it's the vocal. There were a couple of other sounds that I put in there, and the chord progression, obviously. So.
And do they send the likes of the vocal clean, or has it got all the effects on it that they would have done?
I think I had a bit of both. There wasn't much in the way of effects. It was just a reverb, and I use both. It depends what their vocal sound is like. If the dry one is really good, then I'll go straight for that. I think there was possibly a bit of reverb on it, so it's a bit of both. But I start processing the vocal straight off. And
is that the sort of first thing you're looking at? Is the vocal?
Yeah, yeah. That's the most important thing in the track. And it's she's a big artist, major label. They want to hear the whole vocal. As much as I'm tempted to really screw it all up and make it almost unrecognisable.
And is that because obviously as you say, the record labels they want a sort of almost a similar arrangement and keep the vocal as intact as possible. Do you like to do that, or would you prefer to maybe make it more dance floor friendly, or is there a difference between the two? Are they fighting for the same or for a different thing?
Occasionally, I mean, in this case, didn't really have time to get into that argument. We wanted to obviously make it dance floor friendly, so that I think that the original tempo is about 99 or something, 90, 99, and it's now at 122. So that obviously presented a problem, because I'm not a fan of time stretching vocals, certainly not that far. I think a little couple of BPM either way you can get away with.
Yeah.
But with a voice like hers, it's got such a characteristic tone to it, and I just wanted to maintain that. So the vocal isn't time stretched. It's actually at the original tempo.
Okay. And how does that fit in
So
then?
the trick is that I just cut in at the beginning of every phrase and have that on the beat. But also I chucked out a whole chunk of it. There's a sort of bridge section which just didn't do it for me in terms of what our mix was going to be about. So I did mess around with that a lot and tried effects on it. I might be able to find a bit of it that I didn't use.
Yeah, do you want to play maybe through some of the vocal and sort of talk us through maybe some of the bits you've
well, you've got...
yes.
I'll just play this so you recognise the tune. My laptop's having a real think about it. I didn't do it on this computer either, so you have to bear with me a bit.
Such an amazingly distinctive voice.
Yeah.
And have you processed that yourself? You've got a good bit of outboard here. Has that gone through?
Yeah, I've done a bit of processing on it. As you can see, there's no plugins on that track at all on here.
Yeah.
It's all on outboard, and we'll go through that in a bit, just because it sounds better. I can use valve compression on it and treat it as if it was a fresh vocal, really.
Yeah.
So that's about as true as the original as it stays.
I suppose the vocal's sort of quite relaxed and
It's very
loose,
lilting, yeah.
So you're not necessarily, maybe if it was more staccato and stuff, it might be a bit more of a challenge to fit a 90 BPM vocal into a 130 BPM track.
Absolutely. But the thing we did was that bit of vocal, there's no drums under that bit. We used it in the drop, so you've got nothing telling you that it's out of time. If you listen carefully, you can tell it's out of time, but it just somehow works. And also the way she sings it slows the whole track up, and it's just one of those things that could have been a mistake, but you turn it into an opportunity where it actually hopefully makes the track sound better.
Could we maybe listen to then that section, the sort of with everything going? And
and I'll talk about some of the other vocal treatments that are around it, because the first thing I did when I got the vocal was actually I metasynth the whole lot of it, tons of it. I use metasynth a lot.
That's the one we can draw and stuff.
Put photographs of your dog on it, or whatever, you know. It's a great program.
And are you using it for that facility or for just different?
We ended up not using any of the metasynth stuff at all.
Okay.
But that's just to give you an idea of what I'll do. I'll just take the vocal and I'll chop it up, and I'll do all sorts of things to it. I'll reprocess it. So, for instance, there'll be a bunch of tracks down here somewhere, which if I solo them, you should. Yeah, there'll be some just crazy stuff going on. Another bit here. So you can hear all the treatments. There's just little bits which don't make lyrical sense. They're just bits I like the sound of.
Yeah.
And I'm picking out the sound of it like it's a synth or something. I'm not interested in what she's saying, or
it's more about atmosphere and texture.
I'm trying to create a bed which actually defines the mood of the whole track and where we're going to go from there. So, because,
and would you say, is this sort of one of the bits you did first then? That's sort of...
Yeah, this is what I did first, yeah. So a lot of people would start with the drums or whatever, but I always do it the other way around. I start with...
I suppose when you've got the sort of a more musical basis to start from, it's easier for other things to breed off that, whereas if you start the other end, you're sort of trying to put stuff on top of something that's maybe not...
you can end up in a sort of square peg round hole situation where you're trying to fit things together, but just by listening to this already, with those treatments, the flanges and those long verbs, it's set the mood already.
And do you start hearing then synth lines or different elements, or does it build a picture in your head of... I mean, your stuff in general, like, you know, even from right back in the early days, there's a real atmospheric quality to everything. There's a lot of effects, there's a lot of atmosphere in the background, there's a lot of sort of pads and chords, and, you know...
I'm a big reverb and junkie, basically. I love effects, and I mean, her voice is so silky and warm anyway. It's you just can't wait to put effects on it. You know? It's just, it's a DJ thing too. You want the a cappella and you want to make it your own. So there's even bits of her pitched up and down and doing all sorts of craziness.
And how does that actually fit in then under the other vocal?
This is over the drop, which is about a third of the way into it. Using their chords, I think they're piano chords from a section of it.
Have you filtered them down, or are they the original from the...
Let's have a look, I can't remember. I would have... There's no plugins on it, but I would have processed it through outboard. Not that different. Sorry about all the clicks and that, because it's just my computer struggling.
Yeah, we're trying to record screen flow and capture the screen at the same time, so hard
On
drive.
my old laptop.
Get maxed out.
Some of their strings in there, and then the vocals.
Did you time the strings and the piano
Yeah.
with the 130?
Yeah, I changed the pitch of that. It's not you're not going to hear, you're not going to compare it to the original and go, oh, the piano sounds time stretched. You know?
Yeah.
It's just the vocal I want to preserve, really. So you've got the main vocal here, and all these little affected bits where you can see I've chopped bits out, and it's a subtractive process, really. Turn it down. So yeah, it's a subtractive process. You're making a lot of stems, and I'm taking out what I don't want, just keeping the little moments that I like.
And is that just a purely creative process, firing stuff through effects, just sort of sit,
Yeah,
keep everything sort of thing, and then go back and...
Yeah, do a lot of that. You know, just dump, record, and then edit. And if you're working with someone else, this process works really well. So it's very hard to edit your own stuff because you get emotionally attached to things, even though they're not right for the track. But someone else can come in and be brutal. The trick is to record so much that you don't care anymore.
Yeah.
and then you just want to hear the track. And, so you start chucking stuff out. So that's that section. I just want to see I can't remember what I did with the bass actually. There's, I think,
because you've got strings going on there. There's like a low, a bass. You've got the pianos.
And this I think was possibly a. Yeah, that's just off the virus, the TI.
I take it you don't get any MIDI parts, so you have to work it out yourself.
Yeah, just work it out. I mean, it's just copy the piano part. And I think there's a cello, which that's theirs, I think. Yeah.
They're not normally sounds that you would associate with a dance track necessarily.
Yeah, but then it's not really a classic dance track. It's got, when we get to the drums, you'll hear that it's got 909s and things going on, and it's at the right tempo, and you could play it in a club, but it's all about this drop. So you could actually still have another record mixed in with it.
Yeah.
And it would be fun to play around with like that, I think. But no, they're not. It's not. There are. Where are they? I'm rediscovering this thing. There's a sequence here which you'll start building. This is a little mini moog part. So that starts building, and the sort of techno aspect of it comes in. There's also some.
And I don't see. Do you have a mini moog kicking about here, or did you get that
No,
somewhere
it's
else?
a soft synth.
That's a soft synth,
which is great. I use it a lot. I take it out of the computer, process it through outboard and nice compressors and stuff, and record it back in.
Yeah, because it does actually sound quite. It's got a live texture to it,
Well, another trick is if you just put a microphone, like an SM58, between the speakers, and record just the synth, and record it back in. Just get it out of the box, put it into a guitar amp, whatever.
Smooth off some of the digital.
Yeah, it's sometimes that's what you want, but you can hear there's a lot of all the delays in the arpeggio is actually in the mini moog itself. So it's just getting it out and warming it up a bit. Makes it a lot easier to play with and mix. So then this is probably the bit that is, most sort of dance floor friendly. It's this part that comes in now, which is sort of half hi-hat, half whatever synth. That just builds and builds and builds to the end. It's in at the beginning of the track.
What's
as well.
that been done on?
That's the virus. which I use a lot. So
can I take you back to the
Sure.
start of the track? There's
Stop me digressing.
no, I was when you were playing it first. It sounded very signature you thing. It was the sort of the toms mixed with the sort of basses, and there's like a rhythmical thing that I've heard on quite a number of your tracks. It sort of everything seems to sort of be playing off each other a bit.
I'll play the beginning.
Yeah, like that sweep up bass and the
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that's quite an interesting thing. That's the Jupiter 6. I've just got a filter.
And how are you sort of constructing that, or
So that's literally a chord with a lot of attack on it. You can just.
and when you're doing
So I record the MIDI of it, obviously.
yeah.
But it's got heaps of effects. You can hear all that flanging, and that's out of time as well. It's.
And are you doing that first? I mean, how do you build up that sort of? Obviously, there's like 6 or 7 different layers there. Do you sort of have a picture in your head of what you want to do, or are you just sort of trying different things? Was there
I muck about with it quite a lot. I tend to record. Let me just have it on the other page. What track is on Jupiter 6.2? There might be a few. This is going to be the one time I didn't do it, probably. Yeah, I mean, this is the track, and there's a lot of different versions of it. I don't know what. Let's just see what's on here. So I tried that sequence on the Jupiter first. Some other thing I never used. Somehow there's another crazy. That's quite nice. That one. Really compressed piano. I don't know why these are all on this track. But as I said, it was a last minute job. There's heaps of stuff I don't use. I do throw a lot.
So do you sort of? Is there 2 separate processes for you? Is there a sort of like creative gathering process where you're sort of just playing about creating
I'm chucking mud at the wall, really. I'm just because I don't know how. At this point, I'm not sure what it's going to sound like at the end. I've got a rough idea, and you'd be amazed at how more often than not it's the first thing you do that you go back to, and but I always want to cover all possibilities, so I will record the same part several times, slightly different, maybe EQ or effects louder or softer. I like to print everything. I like to get it finished sounding, so it means there's less for me to fiddle around with later. I've committed to it.
Yeah, so you don't go back on, maybe I should have changed that a wee bit, and you sort of just tweak everything
and
to death.
It's very rare that you screw it up so much that you have to go back and redo something at a later stage, because you've got a few possibilities in there. And let's see what's this one? There's an earlier version.
It's a similar sort of thing to what you used then. And
yeah, but you hear on that one the delays are in time, but it doesn't sound as groovy as the. If I play the. Let's go back to the one I actually used. Oop, try and operate Ableton properly.
Yeah.
Now you can hear the delays are out of time, which gives it a swing. So when it's in with everything else, it kind of trips over itself a bit.
That's something that would probably, bug me. That you can sort of hear stuff out of time.
Until I pointed it out, did you notice?
No,
it?
I didn't notice it.
So that's you don't notice it, and if it can bug you, but it's the extent to which you do it. So if that effect was ever so slightly louder, it probably would annoy you. And in the final mix, when everything's being blended correctly, you wouldn't mix it in a way that.
In the track, it sounds totally natural, and it just sounds like it's got an extra wee bit of groove. But I think if I was listening to that on me, I think it's that where your brain takes over from maybe your creative side, and you want to try and fix everything, quantize.
Too much housework, and we're sort of brainwashed to do that. And the computer, and the way it's laid out, is very linear, and everything's in the right place.
A lot of your focus is getting it out of the box. I think that really helps with sort of freeing yourself from part of that process. That
Absolutely.
You do create more errors and mistakes and just offsets and
definitely
more organic sort of.
In
the same way an instrumentalist would, you don't pick up the guitar and play it, exactly locked to the beat every.
You're trying to get some. It's a bit like what we were talking about earlier. But there is still an element of performance involved, I think. And that's it. It's being conscious of putting mistakes into it, things that are wrong, which are actually right in the end. So I love that area. It's a grey area, and it's kind of interesting to explore.
Trying to get the computer to be more human, I suppose.
Yeah, you're offsetting the regularity of it in the predictability. You're saying actually that this curveball is travelling in a straight line.
Yeah.
But it's an illusion, really. I
remember reading a documentary or watching a documentary a few years ago, and it was sort of talking about, it was a study of music, and they were talking about, what percentage of the most popular music is a surprising element versus the sort of expected thing. And they said really successful bands like Radiohead and stuff have like pushed their envelope of the unexpected to to a different level, and
I mean, you can always remember when those sort of records come along and the first time you hear them, especially if it hasn't been hyped to you beforehand. If you're just hearing it for the first time, you think that's wrong.
Yeah.
And then 20 listens later, you're like, that's brilliant.
That's
the best thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
So it's so much of this work is perception and what your brain is doing and how you hear it.
Do you use sort of groove quantizers in
Ableton?
Yeah. And would you mix and match them, or would you just stick with one?
No, I mess around with them, and in fact, sometimes once I've used a groove on a couple of drum parts, from then on I'll just manually move bits around, either with the warp markers or just the delay on the whole track. Like this one here is actually. If you look here, it's delayed 149 milliseconds too early.
Yeah.
No, that's because...
That's just to get the right sort of groove sweep.
It's because rather than warp it accurately... First of all, it's got an attack on the front of the sound there. So it's very hard to... do I put the warp marker at the beginning of the sound or at the peak or whatever? Don't worry about it. Just move the whole track.
Slide it about until it sort of sounds right.
Yeah. And... I never used to do that, and I learned that off just working with Duncan, the other guy in Spooky. He was brilliant at doing all that, and he really taught me a lot about grooves and moving shit about. Sorry, I said shit.